Good morning, everybody. It's early Monday morning, and I'm glad to be here together with my colleague Ray R Wang, talking about the biggest merger in technology history, overall history, right, Ray?
Yeah, definitely. $67 billion is quite a lot to pony up, but it's definitely one of the biggest in history here.
If I made the math this morning, barely caffeinated here, this is more than Serial Acquirers, Oracle, and SAP have bought together.
It is actually, and it's very interesting. I mean, given that debt financing is so cheap, and given that Michael's already spent 25 billion acquiring his company back, hey, why not a $67 billion deal in the morning?
You know, there's a saying, right? If Dell wasn't based in Austin, but anywhere on the water, I would say he's spending like a drunken sailor.
They're landlocked, so I guess
landlocked, okay. Right? Can't be that, right? So drunken like spending like a eager cattleman or something like that. But,
well, it's the Silver Lake partner guys, so they
there's the water. There's the water.
There's the water. Silver Lake and JP Morgan Chase with high yield bonds. They love that stuff.
But the irony is, and we're not the finance guys, right? The irony is really EMC, who's much larger, could not have bought Dell because they're public, right?
It is. It's actually one of the travesties of what's happening in the public markets. When companies enter that public phase, they're really limited in terms of what they can do. I think Michael said this a couple of years back as he was taking the company private. He was basically saying, look, I need some more wiggle room to be able to grow or to expand or to make some changes. I guess this is what he was kind of foreshadowing, maybe?
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is that really, I mean, assuming this all go well, Dell really has a shot to own a piece of the data center of the future. And the interesting thing is that data center may not be running on premise. It may very well, we all think in the long term, right, will run in a cloud data center somewhere.
Yeah, no, this is the foreshadow, right? One of the things that Dell has an opportunity here is actually to consolidate the private cloud market, but hopefully gain economies of scale, as you've been saying for some while, Holger, about workloads to compete in the public market.
Right. This has been one of the mysteries of me. If you look at my blog post, just attended VMworld, had a chance to speak with VMware CEO Pat Gelsinger, because the real value I see ultimately in this whole merger is not so much on the storage side, which is interesting, right? We'll talk about that in a second, but is really nobody knows better what an enterprise runs on premise than VMware. But who can be better than a trusted partner going to a CIO, CTO? I know you're running these and these things. We're now ready to give you an alternative to run these in the cloud on a public infrastructure because it's cheaper for you, better for you. Trust us in this migration. We can't move everything overnight, but we know exactly what we're running and where you're going to move that. Right? The thing I didn't get on the VMware side is why did they not invest into these VMware-based partners in this? Because they have a large OEM business, right? Literally every telco out there in the world is playing like VMware on-premise to VMware in our telco cloud. The problem is, as we know, globalization is a major business. I cannot rely as a company to just have my, let's say, Midwest telco data center provider who is a VMware partner to move OEMs, because see what happened last week. Safe Harbor isn't validated in the EU, and I'm literally out of compliance if I do business with Europe with a single North American data center location. And I'm not even talking about having a global SLA, how fast my information will be moved over, how fast my information will be at a standard level, run anywhere in the world.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And one of the things that data center level of intelligence also gives them the ability to think about how to efficiently optimize for the entire stack. It's one of the things that no one else has the ability to do right now, whether you're especially in the private clouds or linking different private clouds to public clouds. But there's also a whole bunch of interesting assets. And I think you hinted on this. VMware is the crown jewel of this merger. It's one of the things that Elliott, who was the private equity firm that was, well, basically they were trying to activist shareholders that were trying to get EMC to show, they basically wanted to unlock the value of VMware. And that's what you're seeing, especially with the way the deal is structured. A lot of the growth is actually put onto VMware, especially what's going on the mobility side, especially what's going on with what you're saying, not just in virtualization, but really the guts of making cloud efficient.
Right. Yeah, no, very interesting perspective on that. And now the question is, can they still have the additional CapEx to be a winner both in the on-premise data center, which is clearly something they're going to be strong and be well, but that's a diminishing business, as we know, right? This is why everybody has been struggling on the bread and butter server side. And can they be a relevant provider as an OEM towards existing data center vendors who have ambitions like, say, the CenturyLinks, maybe even Rackspace if it's there. And can they, I think they will have to provide what's called, what I would call like the Dell Cloud, the competitor to AWS, to Microsoft Azure, to Google Cloud Platform, to IBM soft layer, and so on. So that's going to be really the question. But I think they have a chance, like you said, on the VMware side. They also have a very interesting asset with the jointly owned Pivotal, right, which has become the de facto standard B2B PaaS tool out there, right? And investment from IBM, investment from GE, which I think is going to remain in place. And pretty much everywhere we run into a company building next generation application, they're looking at Pivotal as their platform as a service, their PaaS tool of a choice.
That's a great point. And I think Doug pointed out that this platform is actually, as it moves towards open source, is becoming one that developers are starting to adopt more and more in that area. One of the interesting things for me as well was the fact that if you look at what the free cash flow on both sides, I mean, there's a ton of money being sloshed around here that really should be put to work. And I think for Michael, as in all Michael moves, this is really about economies of scale. And so there's lots of opportunities for them to not only streamline the data centers, not only streamline back office functions. I think there's some huge post-merger integration savings that should give them better leverage in the long run against HP and IBM. Which is where I think this is partially one part of the deal in terms of keeping the existing business, but then hopefully they're going to make some investments in the future, really looking at competitors on storage like Pure Storage, or competitors like Amazon, who's building the full, as you've been looking at the full, and as you came back from AWS reInvent, the full stack. I mean, what's in the full stack in AWS, Holger, that I would say a customer would have to know about that's in AWS today that's not necessarily in Dell?
That's a good question. I think the big difference is that AWS is building their own hardware largely, right? They're not using commodity hardware if you start in the ground level up, right? And they've figured out in their own way, a proprietary way to run their data centers, their networks, and so on. It's all a black box for enterprise customers. That may not be the taste and shoe that fits to any enterprise, right? And that's where Dell, but also IBM and HP, when Helium comes around, is ready upcoming. And I think the interesting thing is that Dell owns pretty much everything from the server upwards to a certain point, right? They stop on the PaaS side, but they own every piece in between. And I think that's going to be given the chance to leverage some interesting economies of scale to build this integrated stack, right? We see a similar ambition at Oracle with an integrated stack going even higher to the whole SaaS piece, and going back to AWS reInvent, right? With QuickSight, the new BI tool that they have, that AWS announced last week, right? For the first time, AWS has become relevant for an end user and has some end user property in front of them. So I think we'll see more battles going up. And one interesting aspect from a Dell EMC perspective is the recent acquisition of that EMC bought VirtuStream, right? Which has been highly specialized at running a complex beast like SAP on-premise in the cloud. So this could be a way for the EMC Dell combination to get even higher level SaaS level, like pseudo SaaS level, right? Because we've put our free the business suite in the cloud, it's not really SaaS, but to get a piece of that market.
That's true. And one of the things that they should start doing, hopefully customers will notice, is that they'll start making acquisitions to complete that platform as a service layer. I mean, even though it's $50 billion in debt is pretty cheap at the moment. And if you look at even companies like Oracle, they're carrying $38 billion in long-term debt and have not as much revenue as EMC and Dell combined to be able to support that. So maybe this is a shift, right, for customers who are looking at Dell and EMC, that they're serious about transforming the business. One step is the consolidation. The second step is thinking about growth.
Exactly. Growth is an interesting thing. And let's not forget, right, Dell gets a vital access point more into the enterprise, right? Their PC business is double the size of their server business. But interestingly, their server business, roughly $8 billion, is more than the combined VMware, RCA, and Pivotal together, right? So everything which EMC disinvested in is smaller than the server business of Dell. Which puts things again in perspective. So combined B2B entity beyond the PC is going to be around 15, 16 billion. So that's a very good starting point.
Yeah, and then the other thing is Dell was weak in storage, and so this puts EMC, the piece around storage, into play. And it might even give them an opportunity to go after the newer technologies like Pure Storage to be able to have something to compete in that at scale at least.
Yeah, very good point. And it's particularly interesting from a history perspective, right? I'm going to pull a Boxworks levy here, right? Remember the bidding war around 3PAR between HP and Dell that Dell lost ultimately? So now they pay, what is the multiple between 3PAR and EMC? But they get a much more access, much more customers, right? And then on the flip side, it's a warning sign for hyper-converged hardware, right? Or for, let's not say hyper-converged, right? Because it goes for multiple layers, but for dedicated hardware running a specific problem really well, which EMC was doing tons of business with tons of profit with on the storage side. Right? A similar warning sign we see, or interesting inflection point we see with Teradata, putting the Teradata database on top of AWS. And basically, if customers want, get completely out of the specialized for single cast, in their case, data warehouse tool to run.
Yeah, no, this has got huge implications for customers. I think customers who have been, working with Dell and EMC now have an opportunity to figure out what that consolidation may look like. A lot of customers have overlap. I think, our estimates are somewhere between 70 to 80% of customers have the overlap between Dell and EMC in one way or another. From any one of their products, it could be even higher, depending how people are doing if you add the PC business into it. But this is definitely a way for Dell to get out of a lot of the ebbs and flows of the consumer business so that they can jump into kind of the more stable and more lucrative enterprise side, especially in consolidation.
Correct. And then it's going to be all about aligning this, right? On the conference call earlier this morning, they were asked how many people they might lay off and so on. Of course, both Michael Bell and Joe Tucci didn't show anything, right? But you don't want to have the CIO being hit up by the EMC guy, being hit up by the Dell guy, being hit up by the Pivotal guy, being hit up by the RCA guy, being hit up by the AirWatch guy, right? That's not a scalable infrastructure, no economies for them going forward, right? So it's going to be key to see how they're going to leverage this and not over-schedule the CIO, CTO, what they're going to sell this to.
Yeah, I think this is going to create some interesting things for CIOs looking at the layer around infrastructure, what that shift is. This may give them a compelling reason to go to the private cloud, or another reason to go to the private cloud that they might not have had. And more interestingly, see where they could actually dip their toes into the public cloud and the economies of scale on the public cloud side.
Yeah, so it's all about the software-defined data center, right? The not having sized your data center anymore to a specific load and load profile, but being able to dynamically get the three general compute IT resources of storage, which EMC is very strong in. Dell has done some acquisitions of networking, where Nicira, the acquisition of VMware, is going to be interesting, and overall the compute, where again VMware comes in with their virtualization, right? And play this on both sides, on premise if some company wants to invest into on-premise, on maybe dedicated private cloud in some partner or Dell data centers too. What I think Dell needs to do, or EMC and VMware failed to do, is get a dedicated public cloud infrastructure there, where I can tell you this is the loads you should transfer now, this is the right time, this is the right performance perspective to make your users happy and productive, this is the right legislative perspective, right? We mentioned safe harbor before, and similar things like Russia demanding all Russian data being in Russia recently for the end of September. So these are all important aspects for enterprise who need and want to be compliant and risk up their general business.
It's like flying over Russian airspace. You got to pay a tax, so they want to collect. So
especially over Ukrainian airspace, right?
Especially Ukrainian airspace right now,
yeah. So who's going to win the more disorderly shelf in the business, right? We'll let our viewers watch, right? I think I have a good entry to my left in my back, but you're not shabby either.
I'm not. I've got Hawaiian. I've got spam macadamia nuts up there. I've got like books that I need to read. There are books. There are books up here somewhere.
Okay, no, I only see books, but I think I win cables here in the background.
You got cables? You got Legos. You got Legos up there? I don't know what you got.
Yeah, all my legacy hardware. Like BlackBerry cables. I have a rumor of all BlackBerry cables.
Well, this is going to actually make it very interesting next week as I get down to Dell World. We were thinking that the Dell World show is going to be kind of sleepy, but think about there's a lot to do at Dell World this year. It's going to be much bigger, and I'm sure they're going to try out Joe Tucci at Dell World to be part of the announcements and things that are going on. So.
That's a very good point, and I missed going to lovely Barcelona this week to see VMworld Europe. I think one VMworld usually is enough, but now it would have been nice to like have Scotty beam me up there and be there for the executive Q&A and see what the VMware team is, just body language-wise. I don't need an audio. I just want to see how they're doing, how energized they are. Are they part of the new crown jewels, or are they afraid they're not going to be so much part of the future, which personally I think would be a huge mistake by Dell. But hey, if we knew the future, we would play the lottery, right? We wouldn't be here.
Got it. And then our new guy, Chris Kanarakis, he's going to be at the Intel Data Center event. So this should be interesting to see what's going on.
Let's see what Intel has to say about this, because they've been trying to do similar things, right? So everybody's trying to do similar things. But I think VMware has a unique opportunity, like I said, analyze what are people virtualizing, what are they running, and then move that load. So we'll see if they can leverage this better than EMC and VMware could before.
Well, it sounds like bottom line, customers have lots of choices going forward, even though there's a consolidation. What's actually happening is the market is shifting. The legacy vendors have consolidated and are looking towards the future, trying to figure out what's next. And definitely nothing is slowing down, especially in this cloud market. No,
biggest technology merger ever. So very interesting. Well, I think we covered it, right?
There we go. All right. Take care, everyone.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.